Hi, I'm Callie King from CRK Training, and I'm here today with Tina O'Connor from Experience Positive Therapy. And what we're doing for you right now is we're creating a free 3-part video series on becoming a calm and confident rider. So I'm actually creating this video for you because of my students here at the farm. So I've realized, through years of teaching and through my own experiences, that fear and anxiety are something that almost every rider faces at some point in their riding life. So a while ago, I had met Tina and turned to her for some help, basically helping me help my students learn to work through some of these issues. So I guess maybe we'll kind of start by, Tina, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, give us some of your background and your work with fear and anxiety issues.
Thank you. I have a licensed professional counselor here in Parkersburg, Pennsylvania, which isn't too far away from Honeybrook. And I work with adults and children, but a lot of those adults and children come to me because they have issues with anxiety. Mm-hmm. And we talk about what are the underlying issues that are creating the anxiety, and we also talk about lots of different tools for them to use to manage the anxiety that they're feeling in their everyday life.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you've helped me a lot with my students is with those tools. Because obviously anxiety comes from lots of different areas in life, but those of us that have horses know that the horses can be very affected by that, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later. So I think another one of the reasons that that I've discovered so many of my students having fear and anxiety issues is just because when you come back from riding, a lot of people rode as a kid and then they start riding again when they're older, and when as adults we suddenly realize more of the risks and we kind of see more of the dangers in riding. So all of a sudden it's a lot scarier than it was when we were a kid. And also, I have a lot of new riders here at the farm, and when you're just new, you don't have the physical skills yet, and when you don't have those skills, it can be difficult to have the confidence. So then again, you can have fear and anxiety issues coming up. Fortunately, if you're still here and you're still riding and you're still looking to learn and improve your riding, you're looking to work through that fear and anxiety, and it's not stopping you from pursuing your passion of riding. And that's the most important thing is, sticking with it. And I think you would agree is,
Yes.
working through those issues and those feelings and learning to manage them. So what we're going to do in this free 3-part series, we're going to do some of it in this first one, and then in the next few videos, which will be released over the next few days, we're going to go into these other topics. But we're first going to talk about justified fear and healthy fear versus anxiety that might just be holding you back and even causing problems in possibly other areas of your life. We're also going to talk about the skills that you need to help build your confidence so that you realize that you can actually control the horse, and that even if you're a small rider like myself, if you know how to position your body correctly, you can be a lot more effective. We're going to talk about tools to help manage your feelings, and we're also going to talk about how when you have fear and anxiety, how that really affects your horse. So one of the first steps that I found to working through these issues is to acknowledge your fear and really recognize when you're having some of this anxiety. So maybe, Tina, if you could talk about what are some of the physical symptoms of when we're afraid or when we're anxious?
They sometimes can vary between adults and children. For children, when they're experiencing a lot of anxiety, it could be irritability, it could be bursts of anger, it could be regressive behaviors, like if they're 5 or 6 or 7, they go back to behaviors that they had at 2 or 3, sucking thumbs, wetting the bed, those types of things, because they're not quite able yet to say that they're feeling anxious. They can usually identify, butterflies in their stomach, and that's a clue that they might be feeling anxiety. And then adults experience anxiety in a lot of different ways. Headaches, racing thoughts, tension, especially women feel most of their stress and anxiety from their necks down to their lower back. Could be stomach aches, could be muscle tension, tightness in their jaw. anything that's a little bit out of the ordinary. If you find that, along with tightness in your jaw, if you're clenching your teeth all of the time, and you're not really sure, and then you loosen it and it hurts, a lot of times we hold our anxiety right there in our jaw.
Yeah. So is it important to think about exactly when you start to feel those? Like, for example, riding, is it important to really kind of identify, like, okay, I start to feel it when my horse gets a little anxious on the cross ties or when I'm first getting on? Is that an important step as well?
It is, because especially when it comes to anxiety, one of the things that I help people identify is, where is the anxiety coming from? So if at a particular point when you're riding your horse, all of a sudden you feel different, then you're feeling some of that anxiety, or you start to tighten up, you know that there's something going on and that there's a particular feeling in there that you want to be able to manage. And if you want the best riding experience, your horse, of course, is going to pick up on that. So as soon as you're able to identify that, it's really important to maybe stop or talk to your trainer and say, I find that my body language changes and the horse's body language changes at this particular point. And then, am I afraid of something? Am I thinking about something? Am I feeling insecure about making this jump or walking across this creek, whatever it might be? So it is very important to identify what's going on.
And what you mentioned there is actually what I'd like to go into next, which is how our feelings of fear and anxiety and how the physical symptoms that you described, which is even the little things, like you said, clenching the jaw, a lot of people wouldn't recognize that, but when you're holding that tension in your body, it's going to really affect your riding and it's going to affect your horse. And to kind of lead into this discussion, they did a study at the University of Sweden that I just find very interesting, where they took a group of horses and a group of people, and basically they put heart rate monitors on both the people and on the horses as well. And what they did is they had them walk from basically point A to point B 4 different times, and they told the people on the 4th time, we're going to open an umbrella in front of the horse that you're either leading or riding. They did some with each. So of course this is every rider's nightmare, nobody wants an umbrella, so they open because you get the big dreaded spook. And what they found is that even though they never actually opened that umbrella on anybody, as the human heart rate increased, as the people's heart rate increased going on that 4th trip, the horse's heart rate also increased. So that's just kind of a physical proof that even though nothing actually happened, just that person starting to feel that tightness and that racing heartbeat, it directly affected their horse. So in the in the course, we're going to go a little bit deeper on why horses, because of their nature, why they're so affected by this. But for today, it is just really important to realize that they are affected. So they're affected just by the feeling that it can make them more anxious, especially depending on the type and the personality of the horse. And then also, anytime that you hold tightness in your body, which had a lot to do with some of the symptoms that you described, that's going to really affect your riding. Now, another thing to really think about is if you're feeling this anxiety and you're really tight, it's going to affect your mental focus. So it's going to be a lot harder to focus and to communicate correctly with your horse, in the sense of so much of our communication is through our timing, either where we're giving a release or where we're giving a reward. And if you're really tight, if you've got like the racing thoughts because you're anxious, your timing is going to be off. And I'm saying this from experience. Your timing is going to be off, and you could end up essentially communicating the wrong thing to your horse. In a few days, we're going to be releasing another free video, and in this next one, we're going to talk a little bit more about fear and anxiety, and when these are healthy and when they're good, and when they're actually really negative. So a lot of times fear and anxiety, those terms are very interchanged, and you can tell we're doing this at the farm because we've got horses running behind us. But anyway, a lot of times fear and anxiety, those terms are often interchanged. I know I tend to just interchange it myself, but can you kind of give us the definition of what actually is the difference between fear and anxiety?
The way I like to differentiate between the two is fear is something that is a feeling that gets developed from something that's going on outside of us. So if at night I'm walking and it's dark, or I'm home by myself, I hear a strange noise, then I'm going to feel fear.
Yeah.
Anxiety is something that gets created inside of us, and a lot of times the anxiety is created by our thoughts. We're thinking about something, we're dwelling on something, we're worrying about, what the outcome is going to be, and that event is not even going to occur for another week or so.
Yeah.
So we have absolutely no idea what the outcome is going to be because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
So the biggest difference of how to differentiate them is fear is something that I feel because of something that's external, and anxiety is something that I feel because of something I'm creating, something that's internal.
Okay. Yeah, and that's perfect, because that is going to lead, that's exactly what we're going to talk about next time, obviously, with when is our fear good when we're riding, because either we're being challenged or it's keeping us safe, or when is it just really holding us back. So for now, what we'd love to have you do is go to the comments and go ahead and just tell us, where do you start to feel your anxiety? Is it when you first pull into the barn? Is it, when you go to the stall? Or is it sometime when you're riding? Maybe it's, before you pick up the canter, before you start jumping. So start with that. Start by, first just acknowledging, because we all feel it at certain times, me included. There's always times on horses that we're going to be a little afraid. So think about, when does it happen? And so as Tina mentioned earlier, that's the first step. So go ahead and put that in the comments, and we'll see you back for video 2.